Welcome to the Pinal County Crime Podcast, The Trial of Terrance Santistevan, Episode 3. And joining us is the crime reporter for the Casa Grande Dispatch and PinalCentral.com in Noah Cullen. G'day, Noah.
Hey, Jodie.
And I'm Jodie Newell. I'm a reporter with the Casa Grande Dispatch, and we've been covering the trial of Terrance Santistevan. And it's in relation to two counts of murder that it is alleged that Terrance Santistevan committed, and he's currently under trial. And the case number is CR 2022 847, and that's being adjudicated by Judge Danielle Washburn. And for the prosecution, it's led by Sean Jensvold and Lauren Deacon. And for the defence, who are from the Public Defender's Office, it is Christopher Lynch and Anne Ellsbury, who are defending Terrance Santistevan. Well, Noah, it's week 4 now. It's really sort of getting into the meat of the case, isn't it? We've had just about the entire Casa Grande Police Department cross-examined. We've had experts. We've had some interesting associates of Terrance Santistevan, but just sort of what's your overall view of week 4, Noah?
Yeah, a lot of detectives from the police department this week, as there has been throughout the all 4 weeks so far. But um, yeah, I guess we're kind of nearing the end of the prosecution's case, and so they're about to rest, and it'll be the defense's turn to bring their witnesses forward. So I think the prosecution is really kind of putting all their finishing touches, and we'll talk about later. But through the lead detective Tyler Miller, who's kind of capping off their case by kind of bringing everything together, all of the prior witnesses into, yeah, kind of capping off their case.
Absolutely. And I guess, the thing that sort of that jumps out is they're getting close to the end of the trial, Noah, before they start their arguments. And I think I think just a couple more witnesses on both sides, not too many. I think it's a handful. So, they're getting close to the end before they start, arguing their case to the jury. So the week started off with the craziness of Country Thunder. No, I don't think I've seen so many RVs lined up. You could see them in the distance, and then you could see them, going past the Pinal County Superior Court, which is where the hearing's at, and also then turning off into the Country Thunder ground. So it was a pretty amazing sight to see, Noah.
I avoided the madness. I didn't go physically that day, so that was intentional.
Yeah, and driving to the I think it was on the 79, or the road that goes from Casa Grande to Florence. It was just there was a fatal accident that actually occurred, around that time. So it created absolute mayhem.
Yeah,
I'm very sorry that that person passed away. I think it was a motorcyclist hitting a head on with another vehicle, which it just illustrates how dangerous that road is. And yeah, so that sort of created a lot of mayhem. And the judge sort of set aside times. I think we were starting off at 10:30 and 9 o'clock and all that, just to sort of accommodate, so the jury could get there in on time. And but I think we navigated it pretty well this week. No, I think everybody did.
yeah, I think so. The judge has been super good about um, letting everybody know when it's going to start and when it's later, and really making sure everybody has their time to get there. So yeah, he's good for it.
So the first witness that came to the dais on Tuesday was a young man by the name of Elias Razo, and he's 18 years of age. And going by his testimony, he was a pretty good mate of Terrance Santistevan. He described Terrance as a pretty cool person who had a job, and I think he was around 15 at the time of the incident that happened at the Sonoran Apartments with regards to Danny and Leslie. And yeah, he was a pretty close associate of Terrance's, Noah.
Yeah, I guess the two have known each other for a couple of years, and during that time in 2022, Razo was even that, yeah, he was 15 or something. He was on an ankle monitor at his apartment where he couldn't breathe. But yeah, and you
Yeah,
saw
and
some
it's
videos and
yeah,
photos. Yeah,
and it sounds like he's been in trouble with the law ever since he's been in trouble with the law as a young person. And I think he's currently he's in custody at the moment. He actually had to be transferred. No, I think there's another matter that he's sort of facing at the moment, I think.
yeah. I'll, um, He was indicted in a case in Maricopa County. I'm not sure of the charges though. I know that they rattled off some charges um, in the courtroom, but I haven't seen the actual indictment. But he is involved currently in a case in Maricopa County.
Mm. And so he was escorted, and there was a lot of security in the courtroom because he's currently in custody, and obviously, the Pinal County courtroom obviously um, had a lot of security, and yeah. So with this young man, Sean Jensfold was cross-examined him or directly examined him, and he asked him a lot about social media content, Noah, and young Razo was, I'd say, evasive in answering his questions. He used the word didn't recall many, many times. What was your take on that?
Yeah, sort of reminded me of another friend of Santistevan who had testified earlier. His name was Gael Munoz. The sort of same kind of, he didn't really reveal too much. He didn't really give too much in his answers, and said he didn't recall things. I know when Razo was testifying, the state was pulling up some photos and some videos and asking Razo whether he knew people in the photos and videos, thinking that, asking him if that was himself in the photo, and a couple times he denied it, even though um, the state was able to sort of match or attempt to match the best they could a tattoo that's on
Mm.
Razo's right arm,
I
if I
think
remember correctly. I think
right
it's
arm, yeah, yeah,
right
right
before him. I
arm,
think
yeah,
it says different
yeah,
loyalty on there, so that's a distinguishing
loyalty,
mark
yeah.
that they were able to use to kind of try and match him. But even on the photos, it's not like the photos and videos really show the entire tattoo, so they can see a portion of it, and they were able to kind of use that to ask him whether that was him, and he denied it a couple times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He did indeed. He said I didn't recall or I didn't recall, and yeah. Some of the social media content later on, we'll go into Detective Tyler Miller, who has been talking a lot about the social media content of this case. But some of the imagery that we saw that is allegedly of Terrance Santistevan and this young Razo fellow, I don't know. It was some of it was I found disturbing. No, it was very troubling. I don't know. I just found it troubling.
Yeah, I guess the irony there is that kids are sort of expressing this sort of side of themselves through social media, thinking that they're invincible and that no repercussions can come to them. But then when they post things on social media, just like Tyler Miller, we'll talk about later, just like but Tyler Miller is able to sort of go through all of the records of these posts and use these images and videos um, to sort of to point out kind of locations of where these people are, and you can see their faces and you can see the guns that they have, and so he's able to use these posts that they think they're so invincible by posting, and then law enforcement is able to kind of um, use them against them.
It was interesting. It was really ironic because Elias Razo said, because someone used the word vanity. I can't remember who it was, and he asked, "What does vanity mean?" I
Yeah, I
just
remember
thought,
that.
well, kid, you're a living example of it. Like I just found that really quite amusing. What's vanity? And I thought, well, take a look at some of your videos if that is you in the video. But I found that rather amusing, and yeah, like I think I was talking to you earlier in the week, Noah, or this afternoon actually, about there was a show called Underbelly in Australia. It was about the underworld in Melbourne. We had a very serious gangland war, and one of the things that really struck me about that story was that the old school criminals, they hated any form of publicity. They used to drive really crappy cars. They would sort of not flaunt their wealth, and they wouldn't, post videos, or anytime they were in the papers, it was bad for business. Like they just wanted to be totally off the radar. So, these young kids that, think, like you say, they, boasting and bragging and that. I mean, these logs, when police, issue a search warrant, they're actually precisely, they're pretty precise in the way they log material, and it just creates it's like breadcrumbs, like it's just they leave a trail, don't
Yeah, yeah, I guess yeah, maybe sort of just kind of go back to that mentality that, and yeah, the young kids who are expressing themselves through social media, just like a lot of young kids do. Um, and and yeah, I guess the irony of it is that when they express themselves through social media, it does leave a trail of breadcrumbs.
Yeah. There was the other thing that jumped out about Razo was the depiction of a firearm that had a Douce cognac sticker on the barrel, and it's got like double cross. Maybe that's why these kids like that terminology, double cross or whatever. It's I don't know. It's a double meaning, like. But there was an image that allegedly featured Razo, and he was holding it, and it had like a sticker that's taken from the bottle of one of these Douce cognac bottles. And I understand that brand is quite expensive. So that was another interesting revelation in the trial this week.
Yeah, I think you were saying like the status kind of associated with cognac is maybe kind of the reason why that particular drink
Yeah,
is what they're flaunting, I guess. So it's interesting. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it tastes good at 30,000 feet when you're flying in business class from Sydney to Los Angeles, Noah. So, yeah. So it has got a bit of status to it, yeah. But I've only done it once, but at least I've done it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
but in all seriousness, I mean, the other thing that sort of jumped out to me was because he had an ankle monitor. I think one of the social media posts that Tyler Miller sort of touched on this week, sort of like Razo, sort of, if it was Razo in this social media post, was sort of like indicating that he wasn't able to go down to, he wasn't able to travel down to Casa Grande. And it's fair to surmise that if he didn't have an ankle bracelet, I wonder if he would have bothered to go down with Santistevan on the night of the 24th of the shooting incident.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess. Yeah, I guess we're established and they sort of had known each other and they were associates and friends. And yeah, I guess hard to say, but yeah, interesting to think about whether he would have.
Got more of a picture through the window of the car with the trees in the background in the apartment complex. You still don't recognize that as your apartment complex on University.
No, sir.
And looks like the same guy with the white jacket and the white belt and the torn jeans that we've seen in the pictures in the video.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you 946. This is another still image. Does that look like the same guy that we've been looking at in these other videos and pictures with the white jacket and the white belt and the jeans?
I believe so.
Looks like the same area outside from the other pictures. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you recognize this car?
No, sir.
Do you remember what kind of car Mr. Santistevan was driving back in April of 2022?
When I met him, he had a truck.
Okay. Is that the only vehicle you ever saw him driving?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you never saw Mr. Santistevan in his Chrysler 300 come to your apartment complex on University?
No, sir.
You don't remember Mr. Santistevan coming over to your apartment complex on April 20th in the afternoon at all? I know that's asking a lot for a specific day.
No, sir.
Okay. Do you remember when this case happened? The murders of the two girls in Casa Grande?
Don't recall, sir.
You don't remember talking with Mr. Santistevan about it afterwards?
No, sir.
Did you ever call Mr. Santistevan while he was in custody in Texas?
On the phone?
Yes.
I don't recall, sir.
And you don't remember him coming over to your apartment complex that evening of the 24th of April, 2022?
No, sir.
So, cell phone records from Mr. Santistevan were to indicate that he was at or near your apartment complex on April 20th between, say, 5:30 and 6:30 in the evening. You wouldn't remember that?
Don't recall, sir.
And that he came there between 10:30 and 11 o'clock at night on April 24th. You don't remember that either?
No, sir.
Okay, so the next witness, Noah, and it was a pretty grueling testimony. It was for Tissa Ellsworth, who is a police officer with the Casa Grande Police Department. And at the time of the murders on April 24th, 2022, at the Sonoran Apartments. She was given the role of lead detective, Noah, and like I said, she went through a pretty comprehensive line of questioning from both the defense and the prosecution.
Yeah, I think she was on there. I don't know if she was the longest so far, but she was on the stand maybe for 3 to 4 hours, and mostly on cross examination. She was kind of getting grilled by Lynch. Um, but yeah, I think the defense's sort of case surrounding skepticism about the investigation by the police department, uh, and also skepticism about conflicts of interest that we've mentioned before, but around Dominic Laos and his relation to Deputy Chief Joangelo Laos. Both of those kind of came to head during Ellsworth's testimony, and both of those threads have kind of been mentioned many, many times by many other detectives and officers who testified, many of them have mentioned Ellsworth's name because she was the lead detective throughout the whole first portion of the case, and so everybody was sort of eager, I think, to sort of see what she would say and what she was asked when she finally had the opportunity to take the stand, and yeah, she was grilled kind of on those 2 points um, for hours. Yeah.
I just want to sort of talk a little bit about what I know of Tissa Ellsworth. When I first started working for the paper, like I said, this incident happened about a month into my tenure at the Casa Grande Dispatch. And I remember the Casa Grande City Council put on a Arizona Youth Government Summit. This was on the Saturday, the day before the murders. And I do remember at the time thinking, like we've just had this, wonderful Arizona Youth Government Summit. It had, kids from the Gila River Indian community. It had kids from Coolidge, all different parts of Arizona. I think Senator Mark Kelly actually sent a video welcome to the kids, and Tissa Ellsworth was part of the guests, the people that came to speak to the youth, and she was, representing the Casa Grande Police Department as a detective, and she spoke about the law to a lot of young kids. So, she was giving her time. That was a Saturday morning at the Casa Grande Rec Centre, and those summits were really, really cool for local youth, and so she was obviously, helping out local youth, and so I remember that was my first meeting with Tisa. And then I've got to know her over the years, being in Casa Grande. I mean, she's on the police department, and I see her about town. And my opinion of her is she's a very good police officer. She's still with the Casa Grande Police Department, and I've seen her do things above and beyond the call of duty when she's out in the field. And so she's a pretty decent police woman. But on Tuesday, there were some things that Tisa spoke about in terms of gaining certain forms of evidence, and it was pretty tough on Tisa during the week. Noah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think the defense kind of got some wins in terms of their case. And Ellsworth kind of admitted that she had made some mistakes during the investigation. Or one of those was maybe the main one that was mentioned many times. And also, it was also mentioned to Brian Ramirez, Deputy Chief Brian Ramirez, who testified after her. But I guess, yeah, the main kind of mistake that was censored on was the department's failure to test a Taco Bell cup that was found in Santistevan's car. It was eventually tested, but it was not tested immediately, and wasn't tested when it was found. And she admitted that in hindsight, she just should have done it.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
another
yeah,
mistake that was
uh,
pointed out was that there wasn't she didn't write a court order to get a DNA standard for Santistevan, and so there was some communication errors, and yeah, she admitted to making some mistakes.
yeah. Santistevan's car they found, I think June 21 in 2022. And obviously, they searched the vehicle and they did locate a Taco Bell receipt that was time stamped 7:40 on Sunday, April 24. So whoever was in that car was having a feed of Taco Bell, stuffing their face with a couple of burritos and whatever, and they also purchased a drink. And so the receipt was was a pretty important piece of evidence because it does tie whoever was in that car to being at Taco Bell. Yeah, like you say, Noah, there was a cup and a straw that wasn't tested for DNA, and Ellsworth, she was accountable. She said, she accepted it, that she should have tested it in that, so she totally owned it, and so she admitted that. And there was also some video evidence I understand as well too. No, I think from Walmart and from Taco Bell itself, sort of wasn't followed up. I think that's my understanding.
Yeah. Um, and also not following up with the name of the Taco Bell or the person at Taco Bell who was stamped on the receipt. I believe the name was Michelle. And so,
Michelle, yeah, yeah,
yeah, Robert Lynch sort of asking her why he hadn't followed up with this person to get sort of an eyewitness account on who the driver was. I mean, it may have been hard for Michelle to remember exactly who he served at that time and to give an accurate depiction of their face. But I mean, yeah, she was asked why she didn't, and she did not. That was one of the follow-ups she didn't do as well. I
sure.
was just going to say that I guess Ellsworth, she did sort of defend herself. She said a couple things. She said that this was her first case as lead detective, which was actually countered a little bit by Brian Ramirez, who said that it wasn't actually her first case as lead detective, that there was a 2021 homicide that she was the lead detective on. So
Hmm.
that may not have been
Yeah, and
accurate. But she also said that she wasn't,
yeah,
but she kind of felt left alone by people, by her superiors kind of throughout the process. So, and many officers and
yeah.
detectives said that, this is a team effort. And so she probably, and she did say that she felt kind of left in the dark there.
She's also worked on some very serious child sex crimes as well too, and got a number of results with that too. So, that also should be mentioned as well. That and that's a pretty tough area of investigation. And so to her credit, she's been able to achieve results in that field when she was a detective. So I think it's worth mentioning there as well too. But like you say, she sort of felt like she was a little bit isolated. But also, Noah, I understand that she received a couple of letters of official sort of like along the lines of a reprimand, or what do you know about that?
Yeah. It was mentioned that she had received, I guess first it was an admonishment, and then a month later it was a reprimand. And then I think I believe that was in 2022. And then in August or September of 2023, she was officially removed as lead detective. And then there was a performance report written for her, sort of citing some timeliness and also citing the follow-ups that hadn't been done. But it was a lot of, just work that she needed to do that she wasn't doing on time. And so there was repercussions for the mistakes that she had made. And then once she was removed as lead detective in September 2023, that was when, who we heard from later, Tyler Miller took over as the lead detective.
Absolutely. The other piece of interesting evidence that was obtained from Santistevan's car, uh, Noel, was a ski mask, and that was eventually tested for DNA. So I know it's sort of half a dozen of each, one of another. I mean, they did obtain some pretty decent evidence, with the receipt, with the ski mask, and they dropped the ball on the cup and the straw, and other,
Yeah,
the videos and chasing up witnesses
yeah,
and stuff. So yeah, the interesting thing is we got to see, a police body cam of how they were briefed. And I'll put in a drawing. I took a drawing again, and I'm not Picasso, but it'll give you an idea of how they were briefed. They were sort of spread out in a like a line, and Cardita was sort of on the left, and it just sort of gave you an idea of how the officers sort of collaborated, and wrote down all the you know um, strategies of who should do what and who should do this. And so I found that really quite instructional as well too. I know I didn't see any mention of Angel Laos or anything like that, or family connections and that. And I'd have to say this week that name's been sort of I mean, apart from Lieutenant or Deputy Chief Ramirez, that the name the connection with the family, it hasn't been sort of bandied about as much as it was last week, Noah.
Yeah. I did come up once in an important moment with actually Ellsworth and Ramirez, um, where, yeah, Ellsworth was asked whether Joanne Elias had any communication with her, and she did admit that the Joe Angeleos, who had been sort of walled off from the case, that Joe Angeleos did ask her sort of how it was going, and then when Ramirez was on the stand, he was asked whether that would have been crossing a line, and she said that it would have been. You know, if Ellsworth was asked by Joe Angeleos, that it would have been sort of not following a directive from the chief. But Ramirez did also say then after that Joe Angeleos, you know, as the deputy chief, he didn't conduct interviews, investigation, and his grandson Dominic Leos was never a suspect in the case. Was never considered to be a suspect.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing that sort of is coming across, isn't it? That I mean, I know the defense are sort of trying to get stuck into Laos and Nunez, but it's just not sticking. Those punches they're not hitting their target.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe with that admission from Ellsworth and Ramirez, you know, maybe that's some sort of a win for their that theme that they've been pushing, but it doesn't go too far.
I think too it illustrates that the police department were willing to adjust. I think we were talking about this afternoon, Noah, that an organisation, if they feel that it's not going the way they want, then they respond. And and this is not being disparaging of Tissa. I just think that, I mean, Tyler Miller is an impressive detective. He's on point. He's very talented as well too. He's a forensic phone expert, and it's sort of it was a pretty good choice to have Tyler take over the investigation. And again, that's not being disparaging of Tisa at all. It's just sometimes organisations make changes. It happens in sport. It happens when, I mean, you're a big fan of baseball, Noah. The pitcher sometimes, he might be fantastic, but sometimes they take them off the mound when they're getting hit for homers. So that's, yeah, it's organisations adjust.
Yeah, for sure.
How quickly would you find out about follow-up or things that had been done?
It was rather quick. Some of it was coming from Sergeant Cardita. There were other sergeants involved, like I said, with Sergeant Martinez over narcotics detectives. He had his own guys that he was handling. So I'm not gonna continuously bug a sergeant. They know what they're doing with their people. So I would just wait sometimes for information to come to me. And then I kept accessing the system to try to get their written reports and their narratives and print them off as they were coming in and try to organize everything on who did what. And I was trying to do that as the reports were coming through.
When the reports came in and you were able to see them, by that point, had you learned most of the content already?
Yes.
So is the report, is that the primary method for informing you of the information, or is that just the formal route that it gets?
It was just the formal route it got to me later.
No, there was a bit of drama, wasn't there, with a witness by the name of Mickey Wheeler, who a few years ago, at the time of the murders at the Sonoran Apartments, he was in a relationship with Julie Santistevan. That's Terrance's mother, and he was given a subpoena to appear at court, but he didn't turn up at the assigned time. So there was a warrant put out by Judge Washburn, and a couple of police officers, including Brian Martinez of the Casa Grande Police Department, actually brought Mickey in later on into the court, and that was a bit of drama.
Yeah. Yep, they did. They found him, and he testified.
Yeah, and to
He
the
revealed a
judge's
couple.
credit, I mean, he said, "Look, sorry, go on."
Oh, I wasn't going to go into what he said, but if you wanted to say something before we get into his testimony, then yeah, you can go first.
Yeah, I'm just sort of chronologically sort of talking about how the witnesses appeared. So,
Yeah.
so after Brian Ramirez, there was, Mickey Wheeler was supposed to appear, but he didn't appear. I think then later on in the afternoon, like I said, Brian Martinez and another police officer, they got him, I think, in the valley, and he was stood before Judge Washburn, and the judge says, "Look, I'll quash that subpoena, but you have to turn up the following day," which he did today. So that was interesting, sort of seeing that sort of unfold. Like it was pretty dramatic. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I think it was.
It's
Yeah.
hard to keep
Yeah, it was
track of time.
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the judge was nice the first
yeah.
time and made sure that Wheeler knew that he would not be nice the second time if he did not show up.
And to his credit, Wheeler turned up. I mean, he turned up.
Yeah.
He kept his
Yep.
word, and he turned
Yep.
up. And then so after Ramirez, there was Jason Estrada, and he sort of spoke about some of the witnesses. I think he spoke to. He spoke to a guy called Darren, and I don't think Darren didn't give his last name, but his name was Darren, and I think he was positioned at the southeast corner of the Sonoran Apartments. And on the evening of the 24th at around 8:40, he said that he saw a car drive off. He heard the shots and he saw a car drive off, and he described the car as being a Chrysler 300, and it was I think light green is his description of the color. Noah.
Yeah. That was the most, well, maybe the detail that kind of jumped out to me. I think he said that he had seen the car kind of even before the shooting, kind of pacing around the parking lot. And then, yeah, and then he described the car as light green. And we've heard a lot of descriptions of the car from many different witnesses. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time that the police department got the description that it was light green. I mean, there was like silver or white or cream colored, but Darren said that it was light green. I think that was the first time that the police department got that specific color as a description.
I mean, what there's been description of it being white, silver grey, light green. I mean,
Which,
it's taken
yeah,
on several. Yeah.
when you see the picture of it, it does sort of look, especially when it's dark out. I mean, it is just kind of hard, and
Yeah.
cars moving. I understand. I mean, it's just kind of not everybody is going to see at a glimpse the same color. But when you look at the car, it does have a green tint. But I do understand why somebody might think it's white or silver or something. It does, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. And then there was another police officer, Nicholas Elliott, and he spoke about Dallas Bales, I think. And it's interesting because there was a photo that the defense showed very, very early on in the trial, Noah, and it depicted Dominic Laos, Kyle Curtis, and an unknown character. And they were trying to I think they were trying to suggest that it was Jose Nunez, but it actually is Dallas Bales. Remember that?
Okay. I don't remember that picture
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, there was like a photo. I think it was one of the first things I remember seeing. It was like a still of Laos in his red t-shirt. Curtis was in the middle, and there was this other gentleman, and from my memory, they were suggesting that it was Jose Nunez, but it wasn't. It was actually Dallas Bale. So that was sort of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
So
before
after
Nunez
that,
pulled up.
yeah, I mean, and Nunez did turn up to the scene, didn't he? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we go on now to Detective Tyler Miller, and like I said earlier on, he's a forensic phone expert. He's a very skilled detective. No, that's the sort of impression I get from Tyler Miller. He's pretty straight down the line, and yeah, he's pretty decent.
Yeah, he was very, very thorough. He had all of the details straight. And he kind of capped off the case that the prosecution has sort of been leading up to. Yeah, Miller gave just a very succinct, precise summary kind of where Santistevan's phone was kind of, and the 24 hours of the April 24th. So he kind of gave a play-by-play of where, taken from cell tower information, he was able to kind of trace exactly where the phone was throughout the whole day. And I guess it's important to say that when Santistevan was arrested, and we've said this on the podcast before, but when Santistevan was arrested in Texas, he gave a story and account to the police, saying that on the morning, I think it was 8 or 9, in the morning on the 24th, he lent his car to a friend named Midwest. And he said that he also lent his phone to Midwest as well. So that was his his accounts, and yeah, the prosecution would say this is his alibi, and so Miller's testimony is sort of refuting, an attempt to refute that account, and he does mentions a lot of witnesses, or all of the witnesses that have already testified, to sort of just when they had sort of seen Santistevan on that day, and refuting his own Santistevan's account that he gave on April 30th. And then Miller was also sort of able to introduce new information by giving the play-by-play where his phone was throughout the entire day.
Yeah, that was very interesting seeing that evidence rolled out. I mean, the cellular phone records are really quite precise, and I remember an instance where Detective Miller spoke about the escape route of, if it was Santistevan, um, driving out onto Potterbarm Avenue after the alleged shootings, and then turning left down Potterbarm, going south, and then turning another left onto Doan, and then another left into Piet Road, and then up Piet Road at north, and then turning a right onto Florence, and then back onto the I-10 and back home to the valley. That's what the phone records are pinging. That was quite remarkable, sort of seeing that again. Breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I believe he goes to, if I remember correctly, I believe he goes to Joshua Parker's house first. Is that, or maybe it's maybe I'm wrong. Actually, maybe it's
No,
Burgundy Whitman's house first. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then maybe it's Whitman's.
But he went to. Yeah.
Yeah, he went to both. Yeah, he was at Whitman's place before. Then after the shooting, the phone was detected at both Whitman's and Parker's house. And both of them, when they testified, they said that they had seen Santistevan that night. Parker said that Santistevan showed up at his house asking for a car. And yeah, Whitman said that he had seen Santistevan that morning, which also refutes Santistevan's story. Santistevan said that he was at his mom's house. So Whitman said that he was at her house, and she also said that he corroborated kind of what Miller was saying, is that Whitman went back to her house later that night, or after the shooting.
The other thing I'd like to sort of mention about Miller's testimony so far is he also there was a number of videos that he displayed during his examination, and one of them featured a Glock 19 pistol allegedly being held by Santistevan, and it had like a sticker on the back. The sticker enables the gun to fire rounds like that kind of sound. And we saw another video where I don't know if it was Santistevan or not, but it was someone firing a Glock pistol, and it had that drum magazine, and again the sound of like really really quick, like the shooting was. It was like a Gatling gun, like a mini Gatling gun. That sort of the way the rounds were fired off. Again, it was quite disturbing. I found.
And yeah, it matches what witnesses said that they heard. The witnesses said that nobody saw the shooting. The witnesses said that they heard a loud car, and they said that related to the gunfire, they said that it was automatic, and so yeah, it would have been an automatic weapon.
Before we go through some of the exhibit, Detective, what drew your attention to these conversations between Terrance and Mr. Munoz when you reviewed this, the documents that you received from Meta?
Initially, it was the date of them, because some of the messages had occurred on the date of the homicide.
Was that one of your starting points for all these exhibits that you started receiving?
Yes,
Your starting point was April 24th, 2022.
that's correct.
And then at some point, did you go backwards in time, pursuant to these records, to see what the conversation was leading up to that day?
I did.
And what, within the contents of the conversation, did you know?
I noted that Terrance Santistevan had arranged to meet Gael Munoz on April 24th of 2022. And then I went further back into the records to try and identify an address that meeting would have taken place, because it had seemed that Terrance had known where Gael Munoz had lived already on April 24th,
Okay.
or where he was.
Was there anything regarding any of their conversations, content of them that drew your attention?
Yes, there was some images within the conversation of Glock switches. In addition, there was a video of a handgun equipped with a Glock switch firing.
Did you see indications of communication going back and forth regarding the videos, like one on Mr. Santistevan's account? Did you see anything else that went along with the conversation he was having with Mr. Williams?
Yes.
What did you see?
So the specific video of the handgun equipped with a Glock switch firing, that was sent from Gael Munoz to Terrance Santistevan. And then that video was used by Terrance Santistevan to send to others.
So Miller's sort of testimony, Noah, has been sort of interrupted because of all these experts that have got, very tight schedules. Some folks are flying in from Denver and other places around the United States. And there was a witness by the name of Stacey Bailey who works for the Rocky Mountain Information Network. It's a investigative services provider, and Stacey is a forensic audio and image or video forensic specialist. And the purpose of her testimony, Noah, was to talk about the enhancement of a capture of an image capture from one of these videos, allegedly from Terrance Santistevan's Instagram account, and it was a grab of a serial number on a Glock pistol. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting to sort of talk a little bit about kind of the tactics that they use to enhance photos and videos to try and see minute details. And it's come up a couple times, especially in Miller's testimony, kind of the difference between a photo that's taken through like a camera app on your phone, and the difference in quality between maybe that and say if you take a photo through a social media app, you take a photo through the app itself, or when it gets posted to a social media app like Instagram in this
It gets
case.
compressed, yeah.
Yeah, it gets compressed, and the pixel density isn't as sharp as it would be. So that matters because it sort of limits what she's able to see when she enhances the photos. But that isn't to say that she can do nothing. She has, and through her expertise, she has tactics and things that she can do to try and enhance photos to see details. And
Sure.
so he was asked by the state to see if she could enhance a photo and a video, I think, to see if she could see the serial number.
Yeah. And she was at pains to say, I'm not going to say if you can see the numbers or not. She just said, I've just enhanced the images, and she left it at that. But we can
Yeah.
say, or what I saw was, I saw a black and white image, and you could see numbers. And yeah, they were, I mean, I couldn't sort of, read them, but there were numbers there. And, so that's a pretty interesting piece of evidence. And
Yeah.
I
It'll
wonder
be interesting.
if
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say how much of that they'll be able to see. I mean, it'll be an amazing and sort of enhancement if they're able to see the entire serial number, or whether they're going to see a portion of it. I'm not sure, but yeah, amazing work if they're able to do that.
we also learnt that young Terry and Elias, they like their rap music. They don't like the Smiths or, Public Image Limited or Sex Pistols. They're into rap music, Noah. It was
Yeah.
quite evident in some of the social media posts if it was them.
Yep. I think whenever there's a couple of videos kind of in the car, and yeah, that was rap music is what they listen to.
A lot of hand signals and stuff like that too. And I forgot to add this, but it was noted too that when Razo finished his testimony on Tuesday, he actually made a couple of finger signs to Santistevan as he walked by and out of the court. So that was another bit of interesting sort of activity that these two sort of exchanged on Tuesday. But yeah, I mean, they like their rap music, don't they?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, that's myths.
I mean, yeah. I don't mind a bit of. I've met DJ Drama in Vegas one night. That was fun. He was playing a set at Paris, and it was pretty cool. But yeah. So again, just before we sort of go to the next witness that testified this morning, just your overall view of the social media, content that was that was displayed, that was published to the jury, and to in today's court, and what are some of your thoughts on the overall social media content that we saw, Noah?
Yeah. I think it sort of just goes back to what I was saying kind of at the beginning when we started talking. Just yeah, I guess it kind of goes back to young people using social media to express themselves, and so these these kids are no exception to that. But it also sort of the added layer of that what they're depicting. I mean, they're showing themselves holding guns and smoking and shooting and firing weapons, and so they're not being shy about sort of what they're involved in. And yeah, maybe it sort of shows that sort of invincible. They sort of feel a little bit invincible, and that they can show what they're doing and what they're up to, and nothing will happen to them. There'll be no repercussions for this. So yeah, I guess those are sort of some of my reactions and thoughts, I guess. Yeah.
Just one thing I want to make, another point I'd like to make with regards to Danielle Murrieta, and her phone was looked at by Detective Miller, and there was no connection whatsoever. And I want to make that very clear that Danielle Murrieta had nothing to do with these people. It's a classic case of being at the wrong time, the wrong place at the wrong time. She didn't know Leslie Cota. She didn't know Dominic Laius. It was just she was going out with Kyle Curtis, and he actually shared. He lived at the Sonoran Apartments, and Danny was just there to wash Kyle's truck, and she was going to take the truck to Casa Grande Union High School the following day. But unfortunately, and sadly, that didn't happen. It's a real tragedy that she was caught up in this, and yeah, it's just awful, awful business.
Yeah.
So we had a DNA expert testify today. His name was Michael J. Spence. He was called by the defence to talk about DNA and specifically about the longevity of DNA. And I sort of found um, Anne Ellsbury, I think, did the cross examination, but there was sort of mixed messaging from Mr. Spence. I mean, one minute he said, um, DNA can last a long time if it's not affected by water or mold or mildew. And he spoke about like sex crimes. Sometimes there's semen on pantyhose or underwear. And if it's put away in storage and it's kept, pristine, that, cold cases from years ago can be solved by obtaining DNA that's been preserved on these things. He sort of argued that, you want to get DNA as early as you can. And obviously they were referring to the Taco Bell cup and straw. But so I just found that really an interesting sort of argument about the longevity of, it can survive in those cold case evidence formats. But, yeah, I just found that interesting. No?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, like we said, the Taco Bell cup and straw was eventually tested, and he was sort of talking about how long sort of DNA lasts, and or like when it can be, when it was, if you can tell when it was when DNA is placed on a surface, and um, I guess you said the DNA, yeah, does kind of last, and yeah, water is really affects it, um, yeah, and then
And
he was
mold
also
and
kind of
mildew?
asked,
Yeah, mold and mildew. Yeah.
yeah, and then yeah, I guess it did sort of go back to to Ellsbury a little bit, because he was asked, whether the cup should have been just tested immediately, and he said yes, and then he said that, assuming that just because the cup was in Stan Stevens' car, it's just not good enough. Just can't assume that it would have DNA just because it's in his car, and so they kind of went back to that a little bit.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, the defense brought their version of how they view DNA. And I think it was a pretty interesting, testimony from Dr. Spence. And yeah, so
Even at the end of that,
we know you gone.
I guess, yeah, we also talked about the vape pen that was found at the scene,
Yep.
and so
Thank you.
when Spence was cross-examined, he was asked about that, and I think he said that the when I get the number wrong, like quintillion times.
Quadrillions, yeah. But he used quadrillions, like he dropped
Yeah, I
it
think
down to four. So
and even he used the wrong number. It just goes to show how large the number is, and how, yeah. But yeah, but basically it's a number that's so large that it's highly likely that that the DNA that was found on the vape pen is a match to Stan Stevens' standard DNA. So that was brought up when he was being cross-examined, and yeah, he just agreed that it was a match.
yeah, and the defense also questioned the Casa Grande Police Department's handling of the bullets, and Marsasek, I think is the name of the technician that from the Casa Grande Police Department. The photos depicted had black gloves holding the shells, and so I don't think they were able to get DNA from those shells. No, did they test them or?
I think from what I remember, I think that all they did. I remember Spence saying that sometimes it's hard to get DNA from shells like that because when they're fired, they get really hot, so that can affect it. But I don't believe that the shells were tested.
Sure. And the other one that they spoke about too was the actual firearm, and they spoke, like the Casa Grande Police Department. I think they were directed by the DPS, the Department of Public Safety. Was that the gun wasn't tested because they were of the belief there was just so many, like, the gun was found, I think, in June, I think, from Jordan Rusky, and
Yep.
that I think border agents may have handled it, and it would have been so many hands. That's what that was the suggestion, that had been handled so many that it would have been you know useless.
But also just I mean, just how it got from the scene to Rasky. I mean, it's unknown how many people could have, in that even in that short amount of time, how many people could have handled it, or how it got from the scene to Rasky. I mean, it's still kind of unknown.
And the other thing that the elephant in the room with regards to the shells is they actually were able to be matched up on the Nibin machine. So so. I mean, and those are individual stamped. They're like fingerprints, aren't they? When the pin hits the back of the shell or the bullet.
Yep. Yep. That's sort of my understanding. It kind of stamps the back of it, and then NIBIN is the federal database that we're able to sort of match these shells, that stamping to what particular gun.
And then we go on to another witness, Noah, again, and it's Mickey Wheeler, who did turn up. He kept his word. He rocked up. And what did you think of his testimony? Because I know, there was some. It didn't go for very long, but Mickey Wheeler was going out with Julie Santistevan. That's Terrance Santistevan's mother. Way back in 2022, he was actually living with her, and he was a audio engineer. I think he worked for the Diamondbacks or some other sporting, or the Phoenix Suns as well. No, I
Yeah,
think that's what he was
a
up
couple of
to.
different Phoenix teams. Yeah, he would do audio and he would kind of mic up players, and yeah, that's basically what his job was. Um, yeah, a couple of important things kind of came from him. He wasn't on the stand. Yeah, like I said, he wasn't speaking long, but he said that on the 24th, it was established kind of through his schedule that he was able to kind of, at least in prior interviews, he was able to look at his phone because he said he calendared kind of when he worked and when he doesn't. So he was able to confirm that he didn't work on the 24th because he was home. And then he said that Santistevan wasn't home that day. And he was sort of pushed on that when he was cross-examined by saying, he was asked, where his bedroom was and where Santistevan was. He said that his was upstairs and Santistevan was downstairs. And so he was asked, like, how do you know that Santistevan wasn't there? But then he said that Santistevan would announce himself when he was there. And so, and he sort of definitively said that Santistevan wasn't there. But then maybe the second important thing
The jury,
that kind of came,
the jury question.
exactly, yeah. The second thing I think that came from his testimony that was interesting was it came from a juror actually. Didn't come from an attorney. A juror asked whether he knew that Julie and Santistevan were going to Texas before they left, and he said no. He said he didn't. And this is way earlier on in the trial. Julie's sister and friend both testified, and they both kind of said the same thing, that even though I believe they said that Julie had told them that there was a planned trip, but neither of them, the friend and the sister, knew about the trip
It
beforehand.
was a
That when
surprise.
she
It was a
left,
total surprise. Yeah.
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 So yeah, it was a
Yeah.
great question
So
from a
that was a
juror.
very, yeah. I think it was question 43. So there's been 43 questions asked by the jury. And what happens is that the jury, the judge will ask, are there any questions from the jury? And the jury will write down on a bit of paper what they want to ask. And then the papers are delivered by one of clerks in the court, and they look at the questions, and both the attorney and the defence go to the judge, and they have a look at the questions, and then each of the defence and the prosecution ask they respond to the question that's asked of the witness. It's an interesting
Yep.
process.
Yeah, they have the opportunity to kind of ask some follow-up questions based on that. And so, yeah. Well, most of the time, I feel like, or maybe like half the time, the jurors won't have any questions. But that was a great question.
Back in April of 2022, did you have a relationship with Jodie Santistevan?
I did.
Was it a romantic relationship?
Yes.
Were you living together?
Yes.
Where was that?
In Mesa at her place.
The place where she was living in April of 2022. Were you living with her?
Yes.
Who else lived there at the time that you were there?
Terrance.
How often was Terrance there?
I would probably see Terrance every day or every other day.
Do you know where else Terrance was spending time besides at that residence?
Usually with his girlfriend,
What's her name?
Burgundy.
And how far away did she live from where you were living?
Not too far, Tempe, maybe 10, 15 minutes away.
Do you remember back on May 3rd of 2022, you had an interview with some Sergeant Martinez, do you remember that?
Yes.
That was at a Home Depot parking lot in Chandler, is that right?
Yes.
And did they ask you then about if you could remember where you were on April 24th, which was a Sunday? Do you remember that conversation?
Yes, I do.
Did you tell them at that time the best you could recall as to where you were that day?
Yes.
Did they also ask you when the last time you had seen Terrance was?
Yes.
Do you remember the last time you had seen Terrance prior to April 24th of 2022?
I had saw him at his 18th birthday party at a restaurant where his mom worked at.
Okay, and do you remember what was Terrance's date or birthday?
He was turning 18.
Right. Do you remember which day of was it April 16th, 17th, 18th? Do you remember?
I think the party was on a Saturday.
Okay. So the Saturday before the 24th.
Yes,
Does that sound right? So that would have been the 16th then?
I think so.
And that's the last time you saw Terrance?
Yes.
Where were you the night of April 23rd and then into the day of April 24th?
I was at the house, just hanging out with Julie, just hanging out, really.
Okay. So I'm assuming then, since you said the last time you had seen Terrance was at the birthday party, that Terrance was not there.
He was not.
Miller testified again, and we've sort of really touched on what he discussed about social media again, and then he started to get cross-examined by Anne Ellsbury, and so that was interesting, and I think she'll finish off her cross-examination of Tyler Miller next week. So I guess that sort of sums up what we've seen this week, Noah. And again, what's sort of your overall summation of what we've just discussed?
Yeah, I think Ellsworth and Miller, I think, were kind of the big witnesses this week, and each of them kind of culminate into each side's kind of argument. I mean, Ellsworth, her time on the stand was mostly encapsulated by Lynch kind of grilling her about the investigation and about the mistakes that she admitted to making, and conflict of interest. So that was sort of those kind of threads came up in her testimony, and so that was kind of big for the defense. And then Miller's testimony was sort of put a cap on the prosecution's case, which is that Santistevan's account that he gave was an alibi. And and so Miller sort of mentioned many previous witnesses and using kind of what they said on the stand and prior interviews and information. They kind of used prior testimony in addition to kind of his own forensics cell phone data that he was able to investigate. And so you kind of put all that together to kind of really thoroughly kind of trace where Santistevan was on the day. And then, kind of plugged in testimony from everyone else who testified before, kind of refuting the account that Santistevan gave to the police. So two big witnesses, kind of both representing different themes, I guess, from each side. And I think So next week, we'll see the state will rest and the defense will start their case.
Yeah, so that it's again, we never know what to expect. There's always something that pops up, but yeah. So that's another episode that we've got under our belt, Noah. I'm really pleased to say that a lot of people are watching, and people are. I was in Deadlift Coffee store earlier this morning getting a coffee, and the lady behind the counter goes, she says, I've seen you on the podcast." So that was really nice, and
We're
you'd be
famous.
surprised who's watching. Yeah, it's great, isn't it, mate? And I think we've had about
Right.
700 views now with the first video and 390 something with the second one. So people are watching, and I hope you're enjoying it. And like we say, if we've made a mistake or we've sort of got something wrong, then don't hesitate to contact us. I mean, we're always open to correcting ourselves. I think Lauren Deacon approached us. I think at lunchtime. Was it yesterday, Noah?
I think it
We
was
got the
yesterday.
spelling
Yeah.
wrong. I think it's, yeah, she said her name is spelled Deakin, not Decon. I think that's what it was. And
Wait, I
we're
think the
so
other way
sorry,
around.
Lauren, that we was the other way around.
It is,
Was yeah,
yeah, yeah.
let
We
us
got it.
check. Yeah, but
We
no,
got it.
Lauren, we're sorry, we've got it. But
Yeah. We got it.
but then Anne Ellsbury. I mean, I've looked at her profile and the official profile on the public defenders thing, and it's with a single L, but then on the official papers it's a double L. So I don't know what's going on, Noah.
Okay.
But
That's it.
again, pushing all jokes aside, we're more than happy to correct if we get it wrong. And like we've said, if you feel aggrieved or whatever, don't hesitate to get in contact with us. We're also on Spotify for those who prefer to listen to us on audio. So we're up on Spotify now, Noah. That's exciting.
Yeah. It's big time.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And as always, where can people find your news articles, Noah?
Deliver 2 articles a week at Pinal Central, and then one podcast episode every Friday, same place, or Spotify and YouTube.
That's it. Yep, and I'm also doing other stories as well too, not just this case. I wrote a story today about Lucid Motors acquiring the Nikola facilities out at Coolidge and in Phoenix as well too. So that's great news for the community. And you can always read my articles on at the Casa Grande Dispatch, and you can also follow either myself or Noah's stories, and you get an email alert when we publish a story. So it's pretty easy. We're at pinalcentral.com. And it's a combination of the old and the new, isn't it? Now we get the old paper. I mean, some people love reading the paper on a Saturday or in the morning with their cup of coffee and that, or others love reading it online. So I think we're a great balance of the old and the new.
It is kind of old. Yeah, you can have the old physical paper, or you can do the podcast, which is like kind of the new thing. It's been like the last 5 years,
That's it,
but
mate.
it's kind of a new thing.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Yeah, so it's great to be, like you said, it's great to be on the podcast universe, and we're really enjoying it, and we really do appreciate the feedback we're getting, and people coming up to us and saying they're really enjoying what they're watching. So we appreciate that. So, Noah, thank you so much as always for your input, and we'll see you next week. And my name's Jodie Newell, and we will catch you next week on Pinal County Crime Podcast. Thanks for watching, and thank you for listening.
Thanks, Jodie.